Hey guys, welcome to Bonos. I wanted to come to you for a while now and read pages out of my journal, because I feel like when somebody has a YouTube channel, everybody's always like really wanting to get to know a person, and I think that's the best way to get to know them, because first and foremost, a journal is your real thoughts. And I had started a memoir probably about 2 years ago, and I had wrote down a lot of things that I had bits and pieces of memories of. I think I kind of wanted to bury those memories because I didn't want to think about them. They're very painful. But going back and reading some of these things in my journal, I was like, oh my God, some of these things could help somebody else because they're probably dealing with the same thing. And I know that journaling has been very therapeutic for me. And I have shared this with many people, and they say they started journaling and they have started the process of healing. So in my journal, on the first page, I wrote, my number one mission in life is to love me, to adore me, to attend to my own needs, take care of only me, and ignore the negative, understand the people against me, and accept the positive. You'll learn a lot from your journey. Okay, so chapter number 1 begins with a funeral. And I'm going to read it to you as I wrote it in my journal. I was about 3 years old and attempting to understand my surroundings. I saw 2 aisles, a church, a lot of people, and a casket. I saw all of my little cousins running around and playing. For some reason, I was overwhelmed with sadness. I sat in between my grandmother's legs as I cried. I cried my eyes out as I called his name. As my grandmother hugged me tightly, I believe the tightest I've ever been hugged in my whole life. She said to me, "It's okay." She said to me, "It will be okay." I kept asking her, "Who is the man in the casket, and why is he sleeping?" And as I can remember, the man was my father. So when I walked up to the casket and I saw him, I asked her and begged her and cried and pleaded for her to wake him up. And she said no, to let him sleep. The man, sorry, I couldn't for a second remember how it felt then, but I can remember how it feels now. People said he had caramel eyes and black hair. Everyone speaks highly of him. Every cousin, every friend he had was his best friend. The men in the family say he was a fighter, a protector. He was an awesome person. He helped his family. Although my father was a player, in quotes, as most would say, he was married before my mother, and he was with other women after. I don't care what he did. He could do no wrong in my eyes. He is my father. I know he loved me, and that is all that matters. Growing up in a home without a father is very difficult. Mothers tend to forget how much a girl needs a father figure. On the day that the phone rang, the caller asked to speak to Mrs. Arismendes. My aunt responded, "This is she." My mother was in the distance listening. She had a pit in her stomach as she watched my aunt's face turn pale white. Rebecca cleared her throat. The caller on the end of the line said, Juan Manuel Arismendes, which is my father, had been found dead. He had been murdered. He had been found in a ditch. He had been laying there for 4 days. He was found with a cross and chain embedded in his hand, a chain that my grandmother had given him, with a Jesus and a cross on it. My grandmother Paula had given that to him. Rebecca became hysterical, and my mother could not find comfort in any words coming from her. About an hour later, as my grandmother arrived, when my grandmother walked up towards the stairs, my mother looked at her, crying, and my grandmother fell to her knees. And she said, "No, mijo." She knew instantly that he was gone. She began crying and saying, "Tell me this is not true. Tell me it's a lie. Please don't tell me that my son is gone." She felt a mother's pain, and she saw the suffering in my mother's eyes. My grandmother had lost my father's twin and her other children, and the only piece left of them was now gone. I don't pretend to even remotely know what my grandmother felt, losing one child after another. My family was destined to suffer. The loss of your father, his twin, and your aunts and uncles has left me with a hollow, deep hollow path into my soul. This sad existence began the story of my life, the beginning of the first chapter of my life. I believe that this strength that makes me comes from so much loss. But he wasn't around, and that's the thing. When your parents die, you feel like instead of going into every fight, having backup, you are going into every fight alone. But he's not dead. I cannot say, and I will not say, that he is dead. He is just away, with a cherry smile and a wave of his hand. He left us dreaming of how very fair left us dreaming how very unfair it needs to be. Or I am not understanding, but since he lingers there, and you who the wildest yearn for an old time step and the glad return. It was a poem, I guess I was writing, and I don't even remember me writing. I must have been crying. My hand touched yours, your smile could cure 1,000 times, your arms embrace with such comfort. I can hear you scolding me and lecturing me. I can see us fishing, swimming together. I talk to you all the time, but I'm dreaming. If only you were here, if only I could hear your voice, just once. I would love to hear you just once more. But I can't. It's an illusion. It's gone. It will never be. And we moved on. And she married him. She married him in a white wedding dress, pure and holy as they took their vows, and I was still mourning you. I don't regret my mother's marriage, because out of that marriage came my brother. Of course, my mother remarried after my father passed away. And my brother's eyes were the life I needed again. We will talk about that precious cargo later in my story. 2 years had gone by, and she fell in love with someone else. His name was John Raymond. His house was all of 20 feet down the sidewalk from my grandmother's house. I think she was happy in a world where there was so much hate and so much pain. She needed to feel love. I don't pretend to know what she needed. I am only assuming that she needed him and he needed her just as much. Playing with my jump rope in the front yard, feeling the sun on my face. I remember wearing a light blue dress, ruffles on the trim. In the driveway, there sat a Trans Am and a Bronco. The house was small, but enough for my family. I was forced into a new family. A stepdad who was very mean and critical. A grandmother-in-law who was just as mean and married to an old cat who reminded me of an old mob boss. They owned a nightclub called Peacock, and most days I spent my time tossing pool balls across the table. The highlight of my evenings was to watch the cute guys coming in and out of this place. I remember running next door to Burger King to get a Whopper. That's when the Whoppers was king. It was the best burger in all of Houston. I attended Thomas Jefferson Elementary, so of course I had to be home early. As an everyday routine, I was dropped off at my grandmother's house. And then when my mother was done working, she would pick me up. As long as I had my burger, I was good. I guess that's why my obesity peaked at my late teens. All the comfort food from being so sad. And I'm going to stop it right there, and I will continue to read another day. I will read something every time I go live, but this is Bo Diddley Memoirs #1, chapter #1. So if you want to hear more, come back and I will continue to read. Remember, I started my memoir and this is it. And there's a lot of pages. So if you're interested and you want to hear more, come back. But I'm going to leave you with that. I love you guys. Remember to stay positive. In all the trauma and all the things that I've been through in life, I still smile every day. I still wake up. I still thank God for everything that He has given me. I feel blessed. I feel amazing. I feel loved. And I feel like I could give it to you and give it to the world. So stay tuned for more makeup looks as well. There are a lot of things that I want to do and goals and things that I have in store, but only I can do them, right? So let's make the choice to do them. Love you guys. Bye.